So during medical school, I put up a website, some ideas on stocks and markets. As I graduated medical school in 1997, Microsoft out of the blue offered me $1 a word to write for the new MSN Money website. Being wordy and being in debt, naturally I said yes. So therefore, during my medicine internship, I wrote for Microsoft and ran my website. There were synergies between 2 of the 3, and I had unknowingly found a back door to Wall Street. None of this was nearly as well planned as it seems in retrospect. There were a number of crises, including a divorce, and at one point I was so despondent over my direction that I even applied to law school. Again and again, I figured as long as I kept asking questions, working so hard to answer questions, I would eventually find my way. As I turned 29, I ran out of reasons why I couldn't or shouldn't and left medicine to start an investment firm. At that point, the decision came very easily. As perhaps should be the case more often than not, I simply weighed the paths before me without considering the path on which I had been. At Cyan Capital, my job 24/7 was to ask questions and seek answers. I mostly examined stocks and bonds as long investments. But one day I came across a subprime residential mortgage-backed securitization, and I wondered if I could figure out any of that. Other questions soon followed. Why are home prices diverging up and away from the household income trend line? Answer, if it's not income, it's leverage. What exactly are the incentives of lenders that make mortgages only to sell them on through to Wall Street? Answer, volume at the expense of credit standards. When interest rates bottom, how far could lenders push mortgage terms in order to keep refinancings, home prices, and loan volumes rising? The answer to this question would put a ticking timer on the boom and a date on the crash. Back in 2005, other questions stood out. How much is consumer spending dependent on cash-out refinancings? What percentage of jobs are dependent on the assumption of rising home prices? Won't AIG have to start posting massive cash collateral for the first time if it were downgraded? Isn't it worrisome that Fannie Mae cannot find term sheets that describe perfect hedges against its massive mortgage portfolio? Are the rating agencies so conflicted that they could be this blind? In my letters to investors, I described a downturn that would be unprecedented, with no counterpart in the modern era. Wall Street's risk models would fall all at once. Every single CEO and every single politician would be disastrously wrong. I put my money where my mouth was. At its peak, I was short $8.4 billion worth of subprime mortgages and certain financial companies. The most we could lose was less than $100 million, thanks to credit derivatives. And at first, we did lose. It was a negative carry trade. Investors, business partners, and even employees questioned the strategy. Lawsuits were threatened, our distress was reported in the press, and Wall Street looked to squeeze our short. Besides all this, I had to stomach what I knew was coming, a tragic end to the follies. This was not fun. I did not tap dance to work. But the firm survived, we turned the tables on Wall Street, and I became the 1% in a way I never imagined when I was sitting where you sit today. I had bet against America and won.
So how much of these things did you buy? I mean, you got out of everything else and bought credit default swaps betting against the housing market, right?
Right, we bought basically short $8.4 billion of credit default swaps related to mortgages or financial companies.
You must have been pretty confident that this thing was going to blow up.
Well, we had a giant bet for us, and I was extremely confident in the outcome.
Were your investors as confident?
I think a few investors were.
Some of them thought you were crazy. Some of them probably thought you'd lost your mind.
I know for sure that some of them thought I lost my mind.
So you made a ton of money?
Made a ton of money. Much more than I ever imagined, I'd ever have.
Were your clients grateful?
I think a lot of clients were just glad to be done with it at the end.
Even though they doubled their money?
Well, we made 725 million, I think, on the funds in 2007, and in the first 6 months of 2008, there was about 730 million in withdrawals. Perhaps I had made the trade too big for the fund, and my confidence in the trade had ticked off some people.
Even though you made them rich.
It's remarkable. There are investors who made tens of millions off this, and we're still pretty upset.